Last year, you made a powerful statement saying the reason people are watching women's basketball is not just because of one player, but because of you too. A year later, do you feel like you're
Next question.
The reporter didn't have to angel, but he never got to complete his question. In just 2 words, Ree described the current state of the WNBA and its relationship with Caitlin Clark. Let me explain. Millions of new fans, sold-out arenas, and record-breaking viewership are all evidence of the WNBA's undeniable impact, but so is the league's collective mishandling of their golden opportunity. Rather than embracing the Caitlin Clark effect, many in the league pushed back, questioned the hype, downplayed her impact, and, worst of all, made fun of her fans. To anyone outside the league, the Caitlin Clark effect made no sense.
But the WNBA last year, bless their hearts, finally got a star. And they didn't know that. They couldn't figure it out. Well, we don't want to put too much Caitlin Clark on. Nope, every game. More Caitlin Clark all the time. Always. Caitlin Clark is easily the most influential athlete in a team sport since Michael Jordan.
The accomplishment, the popular breakthrough, the headlines, the WNBA had been dreaming of this moment for decades. The hype, the packed arenas, the cultural breakthrough, the player on the cusp of real money, respectable salaries, and international attention. But the catch was that Caitlin Clark was leading the way. For many WNBA players, however, this wasn't a celebration. Rather, it was a funeral because, for some, Caitlin being the one wasn't just a plot twist. It was the death of a dream. The dream that they would be the ones to collectively elevate the league. And perhaps the hardest thing to accept was that, after years of being told, fans didn't care about the women's game, but they showed up for Caitlin.
There's levels to this thing, and that's just life. We all went through it.
Yes, Diana, there have been players and the media going through what seem like stages of grief, denial, anger, and the works. Just wait until you see how everything comes together. It's crazy. In any case, the WNBA has had a terrible reputation, and it has been sad and ugly, but now there has been a shift. A moment that would normally be unremarkable ended up changing everything, and now the WNBA is fully aware of what's coming next, and they are rushing to get on the right side of history. Let's talk about what happened, but first, watch this video if you're ready to see the WNBA cave to Caitlin. Don't forget to subscribe.
Yeah, the reason why we watching women's basketball is not just because of one person. It's because of me too, and I want y'all to realize that.
Every Fever game became a must-see event, with fans waiting for hours and scalpers charging playoff prices for regular season tickets. By this point last season, Caitlin Clark was already living rent-free in the minds of half the WNBA. She hadn't even arrived yet. She had tripled viewership and sold out NBA arenas.
Now, if we say her stats are today, what?
20 points, 8.4 assists, 6 rebounds.
That's crazy.
But 5
That's crazy.
Before Caitlin Clark ever put on a pair of professional sneakers, the excitement surrounding her was generational. She had just broken the NCAA scoring record for both men's and women's, and she had led Iowa to consecutive national championship games that sold out every arena. She touched and dropped logo threes like layups, and when the WNBA draft rolled around, there was no suspense or surprises, just a coronation. She was the clear #1 pick, but more than that, she was the moment the camera flashed, the press coverage, the sponsors lined up, and that's when things got strange because the league had seen great players before Asia. Plum, Wilson, Kelsey, the old guard players, media, and even executives immediately jumped in to downplay the moment. You could see the cracks before she ever hit the court. Breanna Stewart was a legitimate star and an MVP, but none of them came in with this kind of hype, and for some that stung triggered the first stage of grief denial. It wasn't just skepticism, it was outright resistance.
Caitlin's coming. There's more than just that are coming. What will the league have in store for them when they get there?
Look, SVP, reality is coming.
The WNBA is a different beast. You don't just waltz in and dominate the women who built this league. The hype would have subsided, the media attention would have shifted, and the old guard would have been vindicated if Caitlin had just come in and flopped even just a little bit. However, that's not what happened. Every time she played, the ratings soared, national broadcasts showed sellout crowds, jerseys flew off the shelves, and she wasn't just meeting expectations. That's when we saw it in Stage 2 anger.
Voting last season. Clark, hammer.
Three Sky players coming over. Here's Clark. For 29 points, gets tripped up.
Is good. Kennedy Carter now with 12 points off the bench.
The league started to push back between the lines as players took liberties, whether on purpose or accidentally. Once it became clear that Caitlyn's pull would not stop despite multiple media mockeries and complaints. Damage management was the next step. They tried to physically put an end to it game after game, and you could see it. She was worn out, bruised, and mentally spent, but Caitlyn managed to get over it. She didn't cry. She didn't fold. She became stronger. Hard screens, off-ball hits, unnecessary contact. And what did the referees do? They pocketed their whistles. It became a pattern. Literally, and returned from the Olympic break, playing the best basketball of her life. We're talking MVP-level play, leading the Fever to victories, breaking the assist record, making first-team All-Star, and all of that. Once she demonstrated that the hype was real, we moved on to stage 3 bargaining, where people try to make sense of the new reality. They bargain with themselves and others to try to explain everything in a way that allows them to maintain their lost status and pride control because, let's face it, what many players lost was their ego. What did they do? They changed the narrative.
Just the structure of the way media plays out race. So last night we read Time magazine where Caitlin Clark was named Athlete of the Year. Why couldn't they have put the whole WNBA on that cover?
The one thing that I cannot deny is the amount of little girls that were showing up to follow her. Little girls with their parents and the fervor and the energy there.
Why her?
Same thing.
Why her?
Well, but she was a white girl from the middle of America.
They targeted everything around Caitlyn, attacking the supporters and blaming the media because they knew that going after her directly would fail. Even though Caitlin Clark led the league in assists as a rookie, attracted record-breaking crowds, and attracted more attention to the game than ever before, none of that mattered because the story being told wasn't about her greatness, but rather about bias. Caitlyn wasn't the problem, everyone else was. She was receiving preferential treatment, and her fans weren't true WNBA fans.
While Caitlyn is fantastic and I think she's going to have an incredible career in the WNBA, there are women that were worthy of coverage prior to her arriving, and I just will not be silenced when it comes to that.
This is the traditional propaganda playbook. A portion of the basketball community now genuinely believes that Caitlin Clark is untalented and simply lucky, but if they were hoping for the Caitlin Clark effect to fade away as a result of this narrative, they were mistaken. Repeat the lie loud enough, and eventually people stopped questioning it. Veterans began coming up to join the Indiana Fever one by one. These were seasoned champs, not players looking for work or simply content to be on the roster. Dana Bonner Howard, Natasha Carlson, Sydney women with choices. There was a period not long ago when media voices like Cheryl Swoops portrayed Indiana as a place no one wanted to visit. Terrasite even brought up the old rumors recently, but that narrative collapsed because Indy isn't just a destination, it's the destination, and with that, the floodgates opened. Women wearing rings, and they all wanted to play there, not just because of the roster, not just because of the coach, but also because of Caitlin Clark.
And for the first time in history, WNBA games will be played in the United Center. The Chicago Sky will host the Indiana Fever at the UC on Saturday, June 7th, and on Sunday, July 27th.
The first was the arena upgrades. Games that were normally played in smaller gyms were suddenly being booked for Caitlin Clark, not for league parity, not for playoff implications, and not for all stars. Then came the broadcast schedule. Of the Indiana Fever's 44 regular season games, 41 will be nationally televised. That's not just visibility, that's saturation. The networks weren't hedging their bets. They were placing all of their chips on one player, betting that the Caitlin Clark show was worth prime time billing nearly every night. One of the exhibition games sold out a 15,000-seat arena, meaning there were no standings or playoff stakes, just Caitlin, and fans paid hundreds of dollars to watch her warm up.
And the average reported ticket price was $650. Now, if you do the math here and you do 15,000 people times $650, that is almost $9.75 million just for a WNBA preseason game.
It was then impossible to ignore the Caitlin Clark effect. For many players, it was next-level math money and momentum, not hype or marketing fluff. The players began talking after reality struck in a different way. Their own teams weren't focusing on them. Instead, they were counting on Caitlyn's promotions, which were linked to the Fever's visit, and ticket sales jumped only when she was in town. The broadcasters, sponsors, and fans all knew it. Somewhere in the middle of the sold-out arenas, the marketing blitz, and the change in league energy, something began to settle in acceptance.
Yes, have we ever had teams have to get into larger arenas to play against a team? No, we have not. So if we have more eyeballs on the game and Caitlin Clark brings that, why would we feel some kind of way because she has more television games? I think we have to understand that when one player eats, we all eat. And as we all get more opportunities, it just opens it up for everyone else.
Caitlin Clark a problem, bro.
Yeah, she that.
I just think about my rookie year, and I think about how I came into the league, and I'm like, bro, it was such a crazy transition for me to just understand what it's like to play at the pro level. And it's like this girl coming in as a rookie and going she broke the record for assists. I don't think people really understand how crazy that is to do as a rookie, your first year doing this. But that's another episode. Shout out to Caitlin, bro.
The plays that she was making still, despite all that, was insane. But people were so caught up in the logo threes and the highs, the 23-point attempts per game, which absolutely I understand that. It was so much fun to watch. But I always said she could potentially be one of the best point guards to ever play in the WNBA.
The tone has gradually changed. The same media outlets that once questioned her every move are now running features on her leadership, work ethic, and impact. The same players who once seemed skeptical are starting to give real credit. Of course, there are still snubs, double standards, and plenty of voices more eager to criticize than to celebrate. She's not only good, but she's also altering the rules, which leads us to the decisive time, Caitlin Clark's return home.
The fans filed outside in droves, getting ready at Carver Hawkeye Arena, and watch parties all around Iowa City. Everybody wants to catch a glimpse of Iowa's favorite daughter, Caitlin Clark, returning home.
More than 1.3 million people watched that exhibition game on television, and it wasn't just the stadium being sold out. It was also the context and comparison. That number didn't just lead the WNBA preseason. It also outdrew games from other professional leagues. However, it wasn't just the people watching at home. It was also what Caitlin did when she knew that people were watching. She didn't back down from the attention. She thrived on it.
Possessions of the day for Brazil. Here's Clark. Wow! You bet! From beyond the logo!
Caitlin ran up court with everyone watching and made a three-pointer from behind the exact spot where she broke the NCAA scoring record. It wasn't just a shot. It was a statement, and the fans went completely crazy because this was no longer just about basketball. It was about entertainment, theater, and storytelling. It was a full-circle moment that was perfectly timed, and Caitlin knew exactly where she was, what it meant, and how to create an unforgettable moment for the audience.
I think one of the things I love about Caitlin the most is her understanding and willingness to meet the moment and do the thing that she knows everyone wants her to do.
She knows what the people
She broke the record making that shot to begin with. There's just a certain star quality and star power there. But it takes you being confident enough, willing enough to be oh, no. I know what you want. Come here. I'm gonna give it to you. I loved it so much. I just think it's great. I love when athletes have that bring the cameras right over here.
Well,
it's so fun.
I mean, I couldn't agree more. She knows it.
When it comes to giving fans what they want, even a Brazilian national team couldn't resist. Instead of simply shaking hands and leaving the court after the exhibition game, they surrounded Caitlin, grinning, laughing, and taking selfies as if they had just met Michael Jordan because, to them, that's exactly who she was.
Yeah, it is clear that she is having her freaking Michael Jordan moment right now.
We live in a world of sound bites and snapshots where perception is frequently louder than proof, And now the visual matched the reality. Everyone saw the broadcast schedule, the arena upgrades, the merch sales, the sold-out crowd, and the 1.3 million viewers. After the final buzzer, the opponents flocked to her for autographs. The media hype, but this time was different since it was the moment when the delusion that this was about someone else was broken.
Well, 1.3 million people watched it on ESPN. 1.3 million people. Let me put that in perspective, just between us. No NBA preseason game has had that audience in the last 7 years. Only 2 preseason games in the NBA have had that audience in the last 15 years. More people watched this preseason game than game 1 of last year's WNBA Finals. No MLB spring training game has ever come close. The most is when 912,000 people watched the Yankees-Phillies, and that was 20 years ago. 1.3 million people watched Caitlin Clark.
And the game changed as a result.
The favorite to win MVP, should she be?
Yeah, I think so. When you talk about Caitlin Clark, she averaged 19 points, 8 assists. I love that you're counting for me. I need you to count out loud. 19 points, 8 assists last season, but had an even better finish to the season after the All-Star break, after the Olympic break. She lit it up. What did she average? 12 assists during that time? She now has more pieces around her, more teammates she can get the ball to, and she had a full off season.
It is a balance, but she's a generational talent. No league's ever about one player, but in this case, Caitlin brought tens of millions of new viewers into the W, and there's no denying that impact. Not just in the WNBA, but the world of sports. Adam and I talk all the time about she's the most popular athlete in America, you know.
Players and media experts are suddenly far more in favor of Caitlin Clark than they were only a few weeks ago. This is because, following the events of the preseason, the sellouts, the ratings, and the gravity she brought to every venue, it was no longer debatable.
Like this season, people are trying to get on the right side of history after kind of being weird the first year. So I can see, like, the narrative is already kind of, they're waiting for her to produce so that they can say, like, they were right.
When it all came together at the beginning of the season, Caitlin Clark was not only enjoying her celebrity, but also outworking everyone as the majority of players eased into the offseason. Not only did Caitlin exhibit discipline, but she also displayed legendary behavior straight out of Kobe Bryant's playbook by consistently showing up at the gym by 8 a.m. the following day despite juggling high-profile appearances, speaking engagements, NFL owner meetings, and the Masters.
Whatever you want to call Mamba mentality, whatever you define as Mamba mentality, there's no question about it that Caitlin Clark has it.
The haters are actively trying to advance the narrative by praising Caitlin Clark, while others acknowledge the truth by remaining silent. Caitlin Clark is bigger, stronger, and ready to dominate. Her body is built for the professional grind. Her decision-making is sharper, and her confidence under the spotlight has only increased.
Next question.
This really boils down to the grief of not being the star, and it affects each player differently. Some players express their frustration, while others remain silent, and some, like Sophie Cunningham, have accepted it from the beginning. However, regardless of how it appears, the moment has arrived, and the evidence is everywhere, and the magnitude is overwhelming. If you're still here, leave a trophy in the comments for watching the entire preseason game in Iowa. It wasn't just hype, it was the resurgence of the Caitlin Clark effect, and it will be larger than ever this time.